Good day, everybody. How are you doing? It's been a long day. Okay. Um, Let me ask you a couple of questions first. Who knows what Octant is? Can you raise your hand? Okay. I'll give like a short intro about Octant. Who knows about Degens? What are this kind of creatures? Right. Okay. Most of you know, but still some don't. So I'll get to this as well.
Thank you. Is this better? Okay. Yeah? Further. Okay. Thank you very much. So, first, I'm going to tell about our mission. Our mission is to become the first self-sustaining global public goods funding ecosystem that both balances the common good and individual financial empowerment, because we believe that we need to fund public goods and common good projects, but also we need to recognize people and reward them. And I don't know if any of you know, this thing over there is actually Octant. And in the earlier days, sailors, they used this device to navigate the sea to get to where they wanted to go. Hence, this is the name of our project. So the way Octant works right now, we as a Golem Foundation, we have a treasury of 100,000 ETH, and we stake it in Ethereum consensus protocol to create a renewable funding stream. And we run recurring epochs or rounds that happen every 3 months, and we fund public goods and we reward user participation. The distribution of funds happening between matching rewards and user rewards, as you can see on the scheme. Golem Foundation puts the money in the staking protocol, puts ETH into the staking protocol, and then rewards going through our Octant app, where it's distributed between the users who can withdraw, but they also can donate funding to different projects. So effectively, you have a choice to decide how much you want to take to yourself and how much you want to donate to projects. So this creates this holistic system where you both rewarded for participation, and you can decide how much you want to give to the projects. The interesting part of this mechanism is that the more you donate, the larger the leverage and the larger the matching you get from the funds that we allocate to the projects. So you can think about it in a way that 35% of all the staking rewards that we generate are put into the matching fund, right? And then around 20% go to the users. And then based on our stats, around 95% of people claim the rewards without donating. But those 5% actually decide how the funding is distributed. So usually the funding is around 350 ETH per this quarter. So this is how our, I need to switch here, sorry. So this is how Octant app looks like, and this is some of the projects from the last funding rounds. These are the amounts of ETH they received, and you can see also some other stats. There will be a QR code in the end if you want to play a little bit with the app. And so what we achieved so far, we distributed over 2,000 ETH, both to the projects and the users. You can see some of the projects on the slides. We funded over 60 projects during the last year. We are trying to focus on small amount of projects compared to some other grants program that have larger amount of participants that receive smaller funding. We actually try to focus specifically on choosing through the community voting around 30 projects per epoch, per round, and then distribute the funds through the community voting mechanism to them. So that's what Octant in a nutshell. And right now, I want to talk to you a little bit about what we call as a code name Degens Dragons. and how the next iteration of Octant is going to look like. So the key of Octant is sustainability. Public goods funding in the space is not sustainable because it's not connected to capital. Yes, we have different mechanisms to how allocate funding, but the funding itself comes into in different ways, and usually this happens through human relationships. And so sustainable public goods funding requires capital and allocation, which is basically voting on how to distribute the funds. And we have this thinking that it's actually an active process that needs to happen and connect on the technological level, not only on the human level. So our vision is to efficiently capture and deploy the capital in the space into Octant protocol or Octant v2, and then plug it into different allocation mechanisms. You can think about it as we are connecting DeFi space with regenerative finance. So, wow, that's a reaction. The first iteration of Octant, as I showed just now, uses solo staking of our capital, but this is just the first iteration. We're working with different liquid staking protocols. We are working with lending protocols. We're trying to combine all these mechanisms to create this holistic pipeline of all these projects that right now only reward individuals without connecting to regenerative use cases, but instead create this pipeline that will both reward people, but also fund the projects that are not profit-oriented and don't have revenue streams. So why do we call them Degens Dragons? So we have this metaphor that Degens are these creatures that sit on a pile of gold. This came actually from the way of thinking about ourselves, because we had this substantial funding generated from 2016, and this funding was not really spent. And so we were like a dragon sitting on a pile of gold. And usually that's what dragons do. They sit on a pile of gold. They don't want to get out of this pile of gold. And it doesn't sound like really an efficient way to deal with capital. So we plug this into staking, and we generate over $1 million, I think more now, in a quarter. And actually, this is a very substantial amount of money, right? So we're inviting other projects that have substantial amount of funding, whether through fundraising event or through different ways to create a treasury, to plug their capital in the protocol that we are creating right now, and then both fund their community and fund public goods. And so these are the examples of the dragons as how we're thinking about them. I don't know if any one of you knows what this project is in the middle. Anybody remember this project? Right, three hands. It's EOS that raised around $4 billion. I don't know what's happening with this money. I think they turned into like capital management firm or something. You have to do something with the money, right? So we really think the capital has to serve the community. And so there are other, like if we expand this metaphor, there are modern day dragons, there are hedge funds, there are corporations. The corporations like Google and Amazon and others, they definitely created value in the world, but the problem is they decide how the algorithms will run. If we're talking about social networks, search engines, car sharing apps, they're usually chosen by a small group of people. They don't serve a community, they serve the shareholders. And this is like the largest scale we're thinking about. And this capital that is accumulated in a small amount of people needs to serve the community instead of just serving the small group of people on the top. Now, I want to say a couple of things about this term called financial nihilism. So financial nihilism is this idea of trying to use money to get rich quick. And that's how a lot of people see crypto, right? That's how many people see Degens, and many people think that that's everything what crypto is about. But if we look deeper, there is a systemic economic challenges that led to the current situation. And the young people, they are in a very hard position. They cannot buy a house. They cannot get enough money through the salaries to sustain their families. And a lot of people turn to so-called Degen games. Because they cannot buy a house, they think, okay, I'm going to put $10 into a meme coin and see if it's going to play out. And this financial nihilism goes hand in hand with the term populism, because it's basically saying, like, if the system doesn't work for me, I'm going to do something different. That's what populism is also about. It refers to the groups of people who feel neglected. And so this is the diagram that shows the difference in the generation. And from like 50s or 60s until 80s, boomers bought all the houses. And then we see the rise of the prices of the real estate, and then the financial crisis, and the millennials turned 25 around this time. And this diagram shows the amount of share of the total real estate by the generations. So this is like 33% of the baby boomers generations, 17%, and 30% the millennial generation. So we see the very specific trend, and in general, the state of the current economical system is in a very tough position, especially for the young people. So there's supposed to be a GIF, where it's like big dude with two axes jumping down, but it's a PDF, so you don't see it. But I can see it here. That's a very interesting meme, and it kind of represents this jump, right? What do you do? How do you move on in this vibrant space, in this fast-changing environment in the world? And so we're thinking that dragons held the majority of the capital, but these Degens, they represent this vibrant energy that actually represent how crypto moves on. They are not necessarily focused on refi use cases, but they are people, and we need to understand them and meet them where they are. If you spend time in different Degen protocols or on Farcaster, you can see how people interact between each other. They play with new tools, and we need to help them. We need to bridge the gap and help them get on board and understand why we're doing what we're doing here. So they embody this spirit of innovation and risk-taking. And so what we're doing with Octant V2, we empower the dragons by creating the protocol, giving them mechanisms to plug their treasury into capital-generating, yield-generating mechanisms to fund impactful ventures and public goods. And we mobilize in Degens and regions as well, people who are already like in the refi space and understand why we're doing what we're doing, to provide their preferences, right? Because everything we do with Octant, Gitcoin, and other grants program in a democratic way, we try to find ways to capture user preferences to find what's important. Because at the end of the day, most of us value the same things. Most of us value privacy, we value peace, we value open source. And if we tap into the bigger amount of into the large groups of people, we believe that we can actually reach better results than we have now with the either government ways to fund public goods or other mechanisms that are in place. So, yeah, I mean, dragons need to recognize their responsibility. There's only one place where the funding can come from. And so that's how we as Golden Foundation act, and we try to lead by an example. And so, as I said before, we have this substantial funding originated from 2016. We stake in this in proof of stake protocol using our own infrastructure, and then we are trying to tap into existing liquid staking protocols and DeFi space. So just a quick overview of how V2 actually going to look like. I explain what dragons are, we also assume that dragons usually have a token that allows them to have the same instance of what Octant right now is, right? So the way Octant works, and I think I didn't mention that, so in order for you to participate, you need to use a token because we need to filter people. We need to understand who is a part of the community. And people deposit the token, in our case, a GLM token, and they get rewards that they can funnel into public goods. And so if we're talking about other dragons, it could be layers 2, like Optimism, Arbitrum, Cello, and others that already have some amount of capital, but they don't have to be, they don't necessarily have to be that way. They can plug into an instance of a different dragon just if they have just capital. And so we also have this term of regions, and we think about them as tech-savvy, value-driven individuals, and we have Degens who are usually financially driven. And I'm going to explain in a moment why this is important. So this is a flywheel of Octant v2, and as you can see, the dragons are over here. What they're doing, they're depositing their capital, and we're thinking like millions and millions of dollars, right, into the dragon vaults. Dragon's vaults are representations of DeFi vaults connected to multi-sig safe wallet in which they will be able to manage the funding. They can also plug in a funding stream directly. So let's say they already have a capital somewhere. Let's say they have $100 million in a mechanism that generates sustainable yield. So they can just plug it directly and put it over here. But we provide infrastructure for them to do that and decide how this yield is going to be generated. It doesn't mean they have to put everything into the public goods. There are different ways of how they can manage this. And then the capital is deployed in the strategies, and then the mechanism puts the yield and gives this into the sustainable public goods funding. But also we reward user participation, or dragons in this case reward user participation. And with this funding that streamed from the DeFi, regions or like internal users, as you can think about them, can vote on funding. That's effectively what is happening right now with Octant. So then some kind of impact is produced, and we have a mechanism that will allow to reward impactful projects that leads to flourishing ecosystem, ideally, right? And we also have the Degens that can set up their own vaults, and they don't have to put as much funding into public goods funding. They don't have to put anything at all. But we have a mechanism where dragons can tap into their potential. They can find Degen games and reward them for specific participation. And in a way, we create a competition for Degens' attention through this mechanism. So this is how one instance of a dragon is going to look like. So you can think about Golden Foundation, for example. We deposit this into this Dragon Vault that is connected to the Safe Wallet, distributed in different yield generating strategies. And we have these 3 main destinations that we call Dragon Pool, Sustainability Pool, and Region Vault. So this is the place where users, I'm actually going to go to the next slide because it has definitions of those things. So the Dragon Vault is a DeFi vault that allows to deploy the capital. Dragon Pool is the pool that specifically funds the ecosystem. So if it's Optimism ecosystem or Arbitrum, they can use that renewable stream to fund their community. And the Region Vault is this DeFi vault that allows the community members to receive rewards and use them to fund public goods. Sustainability Pool is the cornerstone of our design. The sustainability pool you can think as a sovereign wealth fund of Web3. So this is the project, this is the part of the project that creates this place for renewable stream to fund all the Ethereum public goods. So I'm seeing that the time is up. I have more beautiful diagrams, but I'm not going to show them to you today. Maybe another time, but I think I covered everything that I wanted to talk to you about. So thank you for the attention, and unleash the dragon. Thank you.